Hello everyone, Justin with Deep Dive Stocks here, and today is your after hours market dive for Friday, October 3rd, 2025. Today we're going to look at Robinhood, GME, SPY, Bitcoin, and NVIDIA. Starting with Robinhood, we see it has transitioned to bullish liquidity. We were kind of monitoring that from earlier in the week on September 29th, and since then it is up quite a bit. So if we look over here, so Friday's close, and it's up 21% this week. Pretty remarkable. The thing that is most concerning with these large price appreciations is that there might be some very aggressive profit taking going on, and we don't see that, mainly because we have the new term, liquidity triggers. The L3 is down here and not above spot. So we know that at least on the daily, there's not that much profit taking going on. If we move to the 1 week, one of the interesting things we see is this massive downwards deflection of those liquidity triggers. We see it here with L5 and L3, and that is a aggressive bid cascade. So someone this week came in and took up a lot of shares, and in doing so, took up a lot of liquidity. I've had this idea for a while that Robinhood has actually kind of been under a pretty substantial short squeeze, and I think that that's still true. If we zoom into the 15-minute, we see a little bit of bearish liquidity is forming, and that puts us down at about 3%. So this bearish liquidity, the candles are red, so that means that we're likely going to test that next support, and it just so happens that we have one at L6 here at $144.06, which is about 3% down. Now 3% isn't that big of a deal when you're moving 20% a week, so definitely something to be keeping an eye out for. We definitely don't want bearish and then more bearish and then break through that liquidity trigger down there at L7, which is at 141.95. So at some point in this process for the bulls, it would probably be ideal that bullish liquidity return. And so yeah, but near-term, short-term turbulence likely expected, but again, on the daily, we don't really see any evidence of resistance. There's no liquidity triggers above. In the L3 here, the profit takers are actually dip buying still, so they're still down below spot. So overall, pretty bullish for Robinhood. GME, we've been tracking for a while. It was on its way north to the L6, that liquidity trigger resistance up there at L6, which is currently at $29.54. And the name of the game was always that is the likely next spot, since the liquidity status, the candles are green. But it seems that on Friday, today, testing or moving back down to support was in the cards, but it looks like things are still maintaining, right? So the good news is that it moved down to that liquidity trigger support at L7 at 25.62. And it didn't transition to a bearish print, right? So we didn't see this sort of additional, unfortunateness. Really, we just have price testing support. It has broken through a little bit, which is a little, not ideal. We do have the L3 is indicating that there is some profit taking going on. So this isn't, on just the surface, it is a tentatively bullish print still. We have that support at L7. The liquidity status is telling us that things are bullish. And so ultimately, we do expect another bounce and another attempt back up to that 29.54. But we can see if we look at the last time, sort of how long this might take. So the last time we tested support, and then up until the next peak was 12 days. And then when we hit support on September 25th, and then we bounced up, it was another 6 days. So, this isn't going to be an immediate thing. And I would say that over the next week or so is likely going to be a little messy as that liquidity trigger at L7 acts as that support. But as long as the liquidity status maintains bullish, then ultimately that is what we expect. Another attempt at L6, which is now again, that's not the right one, which is now still 17% north. So definitely it looks like the support is going to have to chew through this a little bit of this profit taking going on. But so definitely I would recommend keeping an eye on this and ensuring that the liquidity status doesn't turn bearish, which might be a little unfortunate if that does happen, because that indicates that it will likely break through that support, and then if conditions maintain their bearish prints, then moving down to L5, which is currently at $24.12, is likely. And then again, as this pattern is becoming more familiar to you, I'm sure, if it gets that bearish print, then it's going to break through L5. And then unfortunately, we don't have anything south of that to kind of, at least in this view, to kind of pinpoint as a definitive support. So a little rocky future ahead, but for now, cautiously optimistic as the prints are still bullish, and this isn't the first time that spot has needed that L7 support to kind of rally and work up towards another attempt at L6. So definitely worth keeping an eye out. SPY we see is bullish, which is exciting. We don't see any profit taking going on. We do see L5 kind of moving up relatively with eagerness, but nothing to write home about on SPY for the daily. So I guess, on the 15-minute, what happened today? Looks like around 1 o'clock, bearish liquidity came in. Other than that, things look pretty good. It looks like that was spurred on. Well, it looks like bearish liquidity happened at 1, and then an aggressive ask cascade happened at 1:15, and that definitely pushed spot down. Things are still bearish, so near-term turbulence as the market opens up for next week. But overall, near-term turbulence, long-term is still looking pretty good though. Still bullish. If that near-term bearish liquidity really puts up a fight, then we can expect support to be found about 3% down, which isn't terrible. So overall, bullish on SPY with that near-term turbulence noted. Bitcoin we were looking at for a while, and it was looking bearish because we had those bearish prints from the liquidity status. And then it looks like a aggressive bid cascade walked in on the 1st of October, and since then it has been clear skies. The overall outlook now is bullish. The liquidity status has switched to bullish. We don't see any of that profit taking going on, and in fact we see those dip buyers are actually still buying the dip. So this is a pretty bullish print on the daily. So that gives us an outlook for the next month or so. And it looks like here we have a little bit of an aggressive bid cascade that happened around noon today. Let's go ahead and watch. We'll start from the start of the day. Let's see. Let's move that to 3. So yeah, there's that aggressive bid cascade. Spot kind of stagnates. We see that profit taking kicking in. We had that little bit of a spark of bearish liquidity, but overall things are maintaining a pretty bullish stance. So pretty bullish on Bitcoin as well. So it looks like things are turning quite rapidly, it seems. Always interesting when that happens. But yeah, there's, LTPM is a bit messy, but this is pretty bullish. So we just got to keep an eye out for, profit taking or the liquidity status, which used to be LDPS, turning bearish, and then adjust, our outlooks appropriately. But we don't have any resistances to worry about, and liquidity prints are bullish. So looks like it's relatively bullish outlooks for Bitcoin as well. Moving along to NVIDIA, we had these two prints. We're bearish and riding up L5 for support, and then on Wednesday we had a nice bullish print. Thursday followed, and today it looks like, in fact, a bearish print has reemerged. And if we look at the LTPMs, they're all pointed up quite in unison. So let's go ahead and add our eager parties and see if this is part of a aggressive ask cascade. So not really. Usually we would like to see these really low order ones, L1, L2, and so on, would be quite elevated above, and we see them kind of hanging out even though things are pointed in that direction. So perhaps gearing up for a little bit, a little bit of another push, because L5 is definitely up here now representing a resistance rather than support for NVIDIA. And the liquidity status has reprinted, started printing bearish prints. So until that changes, the outlook remains that price will likely move to L7 for support, which is currently 13% down. So NVIDIA is definitely a lot more bearish than any of the other equities that we've looked at so far. And then if we go zoom in on the 15-minute to see if there's anything exciting, we see not really. I mean, we definitely have a lot of little aggressive bid cascade. So here's an aggressive bid cascade that happened on Monday. And then we see that nice wave crash pattern as the profit taking kicks in. We see another aggressive bid cascade happening on Tuesday. Are these all at market open? Gee, I wonder. So we have those two aggressive bid cascades that happened right at market open, which set up the stage very nicely for some profit taking. We did have this aggressive ask cascade on Wednesday at market open. I wonder if someone was trying to catch someone. That's a longer discussion. Did I do a video? I did a video a while ago on a short squeeze on ES futures, which is not very common, but it has a very similar setup, and that's kind of what I mean when I say was someone trying to catch someone. I recommend going and watching that video if you would like to know what I'm talking about. It's a little too long. If I start talking about it now, this video is going to be an hour long. But we do see, so we have those aggressive bid, aggressive bid, aggressive bid, aggressive bid, and then on Wednesday, the market opened not to an aggressive bid, but an aggressive ask cascade. We even see the dip. Another aggressive ask cascade walked in on Thursday at around 10. And it seems that since then, so if we zoom in, so let's see. So we have this aggressive ask. It's a little baby one. But you see what I mean, where the lower orders kind of really skyrocket? That's really that's what you want to see for those good cascades. But it looks like liquidity became bearish, bearish, bearish. Lots of I always think of them as like gnats, these like lower order OTPMs that are profit taking, and then they just kind of like hover like little vampires over spot as it decreases. So we had lots of kind of those little profit takers, profit taking. We had a little bit of an aggressive, overzealous ask walk in. We test L6 for support, get down to L7, and it looks like currently though the nats are a little bit underneath spot, so maybe some transition to a dip buying mentality more than a profit taking mentality. But liquidity status is still bearish, and so wow, look, today actually bounced between these two, between LTPM or LT7 and 6. So near-term so this is the 15-minute, so definitely near-term turbulence, but it is bearish, so it'll, these profit takers or these dip buyers rather, because it's below spot, definitely have their work cut out for them. But they definitely have their work cut out for them, because on the 15-minute, it's we have this aggressive bid cascade that didn't actually do much, just led to some profit taking. And that looks like that's what's happening right now. Another aggressive ask cascade is forming. And so NVIDIA is definitely a little bit in a tight spot. I think NVIDIA looks bearish, just from my interpretation. So NVIDIA looks bearish. Bitcoin on the daily looks surprisingly bullish. There's no real kind of like traps that look to be present. As long as this maintains its bullish prints, should be good. SPY is looking pretty bullish. GME is looking tentative, right? We're testing support. It's not the first time we've done it. Liquidity status is still printing bearish or bullish prints. But we do have a little bit of this profit-taking-esque looking behavior. And that 15-minute was looking a little rocky. So definitely a little, it's pretty rocky on GME right now. So definitely, I would say prepare for that. On the weekly, what do we have? So on the weekly, we do have bearish prints. It looks like things are pretty confined between the L6 and L7, which actually has been the case for a while now, it looks like. So we had this It doesn't even look like it would be an aggressive bid cascade, but let's check. Let us check. It's Friday. We don't have to go to bed early. There's no market tomorrow. Yeah, pretty good. So reasonable. We do see a little bit of the crash. And then we had this other aggressive bid walk in on, this is back in 2024. But we can see that kind of since then, since we hit the nitrous, nitrous, to break above L6 or L7 and L6, spot has kind of just fluctuated between these 2 points. And so there's no reason to expect that that's not going to be what continues to happen for now. Although the difference is we have in recent times switched on the weekly view to that bearish liquidity. So definitely recommend keeping an eye out and seeing where things go. And, as they are a little tenuous at the moment. So, and Hood is looking good. So, all right, guys, that is your after hours market dive for Friday, October 3rd, 2025. I'm Justin. Thanks for hanging out. Let me know if there's anything in particular that you want to see. And otherwise, I will see you next time. Adios.